Europe spent centuries building nations through language, law, military sacrifice, and shared identity. Why does modern politics now speak about borders as though they are embarrassing administrative inconveniences? Because globalization changed everything. Economies, migration, technology, labor movement. Modern leaders manage complexity now, not isolated kingdoms protected by mountains and cavalry. France once assimilated people into a national identity. Now I see parallel societies forming, while bureaucrats produce reports explaining why noticing this is impolite. Modern societies became fragmented everywhere simultaneously. Social media, consumer culture, political polarization. Immigration intensified the instability, but it did not create it alone. A nation without cohesion eventually becomes geography with tax policy. True, but modern democracies also fear forced cultural uniformity after the disasters of the 20th century. Every discussion about identity now feels historically radioactive. Your generation speaks constantly about openness, while ordinary citizens increasingly feel like strangers inside their own cities. Because leaders are balancing economics, security, humanitarian obligations, demographics, and public anxiety simultaneously. Unfortunately, voters prefer simple answers to historically complicated problems. In my era, states feared invasion by armies. Modern Europe appears more frightened of offending journalists on social media. Correct. One cavalry charge was easier to survive than 3 weeks of online outrage and televised panel discussions.
Paris still burns regularly, I see. Barricades, strikes, riots, burning rubbish in the streets. France appears emotionally committed to public disorder as a form of national exercise. Protest is practically our second official language. French citizens consider mild civil unrest an important democratic ritual, somewhere between voting and complaining about train schedules. In my time, revolutions involved cannons, ideology, and existential national transformation. Now I watch people set fire to scooters because retirement age increased by 2 years. You underestimate the emotional significance of pensions in French civilization. We may survive economic collapse, but longer working hours threaten the metaphysical structure of the republic itself. Why does modern leadership appear so hesitant? Every decision arrives wrapped in apologies, consultations, commissions, and televised concern. Because modern democracies distrust certainty. Strong conviction now immediately triggers accusations of authoritarianism, elitism, colonialism, technocracy, or all four simultaneously before lunch. I governed through speed. Victory often belongs to whoever acts decisively before opponents finish debating terminology. Modern politics moves differently. Today, a leader must survive 24-hour news cycles, social media outrage, coalition negotiations, international markets, and opinion polls conducted hourly by anxious television networks. France once exported revolution, law, military power, and philosophy. Now it exports luxury handbags and existential pessimism. To be fair, both industries remain extremely profitable.
Entire nations now argue through tiny messages written by anonymous cowards holding cartoon profile pictures. This is considered political discourse? Correct. We call it democratic participation, though psychologically it resembles a permanent nervous breakdown accelerated by Wi-Fi. Public opinion existed in my era as well. The difference is that citizens required newspapers, cafes, and actual effort before embarrassing themselves politically. Technology accelerated emotion faster than wisdom could adapt. Humanity gained instant communication without first developing emotional bricks. I notice modern politicians spend enormous energy pretending to be ordinary. Photographs eating sandwiches, visiting bakeries, awkwardly hugging school children.
Optics became inseparable from governance. Modern voters demand exceptional leadership, while simultaneously distrusting anyone who visibly appears exceptional. In my era, leaders cultivated grandeur. Distance created authority. Why must modern presidents constantly prove they are relatable? Because modern societies confuse familiarity with trust. Unfortunately, this often produces leaders who resemble exhausted customer service managers with security escorts. Honestly, I preferred artillery. Much simpler than surviving 3 weeks of outrage because someone misunderstood a sentence during a podcast interview. Modern politics is mostly surviving misunderstandings professionally until retirement or nervous collapse arrives first.
Europe once dreamed about civilization, greatness, architecture, science, conquest, philosophy. Now Brussels appears devoted entirely to regulating bottle caps and emotionally exhausting paperwork. Bureaucracy is the inevitable price of cooperation between nations that spent several centuries enthusiastically invading one another. Your generation constantly speaks about European values. What precisely are they now? From the outside, Europe often resembles a wealthy civilization apologizing continuously for existing. Europe carries historical guilt alongside historical achievement. The challenge is preserving openness without dissolving cultural confidence completely in the process. Empires collapse when elites stop believing in their own civilization, psychologically, before collapse arrives physically. Rome lost confidence long before it lost territory. True, but nationalism without restraint also produced catastrophe repeatedly. Modern Europe now attempts the exhausting balancing act between pride and historical memory. Your leaders believed economic integration alone would create unity. But human beings require belonging, symbols, continuity, shared stories, not merely airports and trade agreements. Absolutely. Unfortunately, globalization fragmented identity faster than governments anticipated. Rebuilding cohesion is far more difficult than economists promised. France once inspired awe. Modern Europe fears causing discomfort on social media. Online outrage now travels faster than cavalry ever did.
Modern leaders appear obsessed with approval ratings. Is governing now simply reputation management with occasional speeches attached? Legitimacy matters differently today. Modern societies no longer obey authority automatically, so leadership became continuous persuasion rather than command. I shaped history through ambition, vision, risk, and occasionally irresponsible confidence. Modern politics feels administratively exhausted before breakfast. Because modern governments inherited overlapping crises simultaneously: migration, technology, debt, polarization, demographics, energy, social fragmentation. Every solution now creates 3 new problems immediately. The modern world possesses extraordinary technology, yet appears spiritually uncertain about itself. Infinite information, declining confidence, increasing comfort, increasing anxiety. Progress solved many material problems while creating psychological ones nobody anticipated. Human beings evolved for villages and rituals, not permanent digital overstimulation. Tell me honestly, does modern civilization still believe in greatness? Secretly, yes. Publicly, it prefers humility because greatness creates hierarchy, discomfort, and comparison. Modern culture admires excellence while pretending not to. Final diagnosis of modern Europe? Wealthy, educated, fragmented, morally ambitious, deeply anxious, unsure whether it is entering renaissance or decline. So France remains perfectly European, after all.